Hello and welcome to this episode of Beat Teacher Burnout. I'm so glad you're listening this week. I have a wonderful guest, Helen, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about school culture and how much that is important, or how much is our own individual responsibility important when we're looking at burnout, overwhelm, overwork, those sorts of areas. So welcome, Helen. It's great to have you on here.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you so much for asking me.
Well, it's great because Helen has amazing range of experiences. So, Helen, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about you?
I started teaching way back in 1992 in the secondary sector. I started off as a drama teacher and always had an interest in pastoral care. So I became a head of house before moving into being a vice principal in charge of inclusion. And from that, moved into being a behaviour management consultant for the local authority. About 13 years ago, I decided to retrain, and I retrained as a therapist and had a private practice for about 10 years or so. And then I did a master's in applied positive psychology and coaching psychology. And as a result from that work, I now work with schools and parents and various organisations using tools and techniques from the wonderful world of positive psychology to help people support their well-being, and so people can thrive and flourish in wherever they find themselves in their world.
Oh, I love that. What a great intro. And obviously, thriving and flourishing for me is top of my mind because my
Absolutely.
first book was called Teach, Flourish, Thrive. So that is our aim for teachers and leaders, to find a place that they can really flourish and thrive.
Absolutely, because when we are able to thrive and flourish, then our resilience improves, our overall well-being improves, positive emotions just go through the roof, and those challenges where we wake up and we want to pull the duvet over the head, those challenges, they don't go away, but they just become so much more manageable.
Yeah. And actually, to add to that, the research shows that our productivity increases, our creativity increases, our energy increases, all those different areas of ourselves. So we really can be the best version of ourselves. So that's what we're after today. So, Helen, tell us a little bit about, I know you've got an amazing story about your daughter that really links to what we want to talk about today.
Yeah. I have an amazing 13-year-old daughter who 2 years ago, she's in year 9 now. 2 years ago, we made the really painful and really difficult decision to withdraw her from a bricks and mortar school because she was suffering from burnout. She has been diagnosed with auditory processing disorder, sensory processing disorder, and dyspraxia, or DCD, and we're currently undergoing assessments for ASD and ADHD as well. And she certainly identifies both with ASD and ADHD. And we pulled her out of school because the school tried to be as supportive as they could, but ultimately the environment was just too hostile for her to be able to thrive and flourish in. And so we withdrew her from school, and we gave her quite a lot of time to recover. And we actually, against my better judgment at the time, I'm going to be really honest, and I've said this to her present school, we enrolled her in an online school because we felt that she could access learning, but in an environment that she could control. And it's not been smooth sailing since the day we pulled her out. Far from it. We've been on a journey, and we're still on a journey. But 2 years on, she is happy and content in herself. She had completely socially withdrawn a couple of years ago. She's now accessing drama clubs, and she does aerial silk, and she accesses youth clubs. And you can just see that her overall well-being is so much better because she's in an environment that she can control, but she's also surrounded by people who understand her strengths and give her opportunities to use her strengths, where we can help build up her resilience. We can give her confidence in herself. And I've got my daughter back. And 2 years ago, when she was in a bricks and mortar school, I wasn't certain we would get her back. I thought we had lost her. So it's been quite a journey for us all.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I expect a lot of that story was incredibly painful. I'm glad, that now you've got your daughter back. How do you parallel that to teachers and burnout, overwhelm, and school culture?
I think that's a really good question. And I think it falls down to unrealistic expectations and having a system that is not flexible enough at the moment to really support well-being, whatever that means for the individual, because well-being is about our mental health, it's about our physical health, it's about our social interactions and social health as well. And I think it's really difficult for schools on a wide scale to be able to flex enough at the moment in the current system to really be able to meet individuals' needs, to really be inclusive, and to recognize when people's well-being is starting to dip. And we all have days where our well-being dips for whatever reason. But I think, a bit like my daughter, she masked. And so the teachers thought I was an over anxious and over worried parent until they heard what my background was. And then they kind of went, oh, maybe she does know what she's talking about. But she masked. And one of the reasons that she masked is that she was in an environment that, for whatever reason, there wasn't that psychological safety for her to be her authentic self. And as a result of that, there wasn't a sense of belonging for her. And as a result of that, although the school promoted self-advocacy, that she wasn't able to have a voice. She couldn't find a voice. And those are the pathways to inclusion. And I think part and parcel of the reason for burnout in schools is, as with many organisations, not just schools, there isn't that psychological safety where people can come in and say, I'm really struggling right now. Actually, I have no idea how to implement this new teaching strategy. Or, no, I can't do another meeting because I've got to go home and look after my family, or whatever it may be, because we are part of various different systems. We are part of a family system. We are part of a work system. We're part of many systems that overlap. And yet when we're in the school system, there is an unspoken and perhaps even unconscious demand that it has got to take priority, no matter what. I was talking to a teacher friend of mine this week, and he's still at the school that I was at a number of years ago. And I remember every Sunday he'd shut the dining room doors. He sat down at 2:00 in the afternoon and probably didn't emerge till about 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, because he was marking, because he was preparing and planning. He was a head of department at the time. And, he's a couple of years off retirement. He's still doing that, to the cost to his family and to the cost of his health as well, which is why he's probably taking early retirement. And so I think we have cultures in our schools that, even though we understand about inclusion, we might not understand about that need for psychological safety, or what that really looks like for our teachers. And so people become silent and they become unnoticed, and their overall health is massively compromised. And from what I can see, in the large majority of cases, people either leave, they get out before it gets too bad, or they hit burnout. And it's a problem.
Wow. So what you're saying, we always say about children, they'll learn if they feel safe and happy,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Now you're talking about psychological safety of the teachers and the leaders. So how do you create that?
So, psychological safety is being in an environment where we are in a trusting enough environment that we can voice our concerns. We do feel that our voices matter. No matter, even if in that hierarchy of schools, whether we've been teaching for a week, whether we've been teaching for 20 years, our voices matter. And if we see policies, if we see strategies, if we see new ways of doing things, and we think it's going to go wrong, to be able to feed that upwards and for that to be listened to. It's a complex area of how do we create psychological safety, but it is through trust. It is through asking and responding to feedback. It's actually rewarding those people for saying, do you know what, I think there's a problem with this idea, rather than kind of shrugging shoulders going, well, this is what we're doing. It's giving teachers, because teachers, they're the ones in the classroom, they know what works and what doesn't work. It's really getting their voices involved at the start of any discussions that we're going to change anything within the school. We used to have, when I first started working, we used to have working parties where we had, before anything was implemented, we would have those working parties where we would have a selection of staff from across different ranges, different experiences, different subjects, and not always just teachers, because our schools are made up of other people who are incredibly important to that running of the school, who are not teachers. So getting the voices, and we would be given an opportunity to feed back on any new ideas that were being implemented. And I think because of the busyness of school and the size of school and the sizes of the challenges that our schools are facing, strategies like that, I think, have taken a tumble. And if we could introduce those areas back, then we start to create a more psychologically safe environment where people's voices can be heard, where we do trust the people that we are working with, where we do feel that we are being represented as well, that our views and our voices are being represented and heard and actioned.
And I think I would add to that the trust has to go both ways. So the leaders trust the teachers and the teachers trust the leaders who are
Absolutely.
guiding it.
Absolutely. And I do remember actually when I first became a leader in a senior school, and I had been their behaviour management consultant for the local authority, and I'd gone in and I was met really positively by a lot of people in that role. As soon as I was appointed as the vice principal, the relationships between myself and the staff changed massively because they didn't trust the senior leadership team, and I became part of the perceived problem. And that was quite an interesting dynamic. So you're absolutely right. We need to be trusting on all levels. And that is important for the new teacher in the school to hear, and it's really important for those people who've been in the fabric of the school for a number of years, who undoubtedly are influential in their views and their voice, and also for senior leaders to think, how can we transparently show our trust in our teachers?
So if leaders are listening to this and thinking, okay, I want my team to trust me, how do I develop that? What would you be saying to them?
That's a really good question. Have you come across Brené Brown's work, The Power of
Yes.
Vulnerability? So a really good way of building trust is for a leader to show some vulnerability. Now, that doesn't mean that leaders don't go in tomorrow and share your deepest and darkest. Don't do that, because you'll scare your staff. But just being vulnerable enough to say, do you know what? First week back, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I seem to have forgotten how to do anything. I remember when I first became a vice principal, I had an amazing head teacher called Stuart McLaughlin. And he came, he did it, I don't know if he did it deliberately or not, but within a couple of weeks of me joining the school, about 6-7 o'clock at night, he came knocking on my door, and he came into the office and sat down. And he said, I'm just wondering if I could share a problem with you, because I don't really know what to do with this. And I remember thinking, you're the head teacher of the school. Why are you asking me? But the mere fact he trusted me enough to share a problem, he showed his vulnerability. He said to me in that statement, you know what, I haven't got all the answers. I really value your opinion. Built up that trust, and he role modeled the behavior that I suspect he wanted to see, which is me feeling comfortable enough to be able to go and share whatever challenges or problem that I might have with him. He made that safe. So I would say one of the fastest routes is by sharing challenges with your teams. So again, you've got a new member of staff in, and they think that everyone knows the answer, and of course we don't. So, and you want to again encourage those voices in your teams, in your departments. And there's something called respectful engagement, which is giving people the time to respond to questions, to situations. And in terms of the other way we can build trust is something through respectful engagement. Now, there's really interesting research, and we think that a really good way to build trust is how we respond to people in terms of their negative news, any negative news that they may bring, how we respond to that. Actually, research indicates that the sign of a really positive and trusting relationship is how well we respond to good news. And if somebody comes to you in terms of sharing good news, and I once had somebody do this to me, they responded to my good news almost by ignoring. And the good news was I'd got married. And wow. I had brought in some wedding cake for this particular individual who completely dismissed my news and my small gift of a piece of wedding cake. And in those times when people are sharing the good news, it's stopping and stating our positive regard for them and their news. That is a sign that we can have a trusting relationship with someone.
Helen, I hate to say it, but that sounds so obvious. Wouldn't you just do that with somebody if they were sharing something lovely with you?
It does sound obvious, but there's a guy called John Gottman who set up a research on newly married couples, and he could accurately predict which newlyweds he interviewed would still be married within 7 years. Now, I don't know about you, Rowena, but when I first got married, there's no way I would have gone to see John Gottman. There's just no way I would have gone to see him. But some brave individuals did. And what he found was it was those people or those couples who supported statements in the most positive way, that he predicted that those would be the couples who stayed together. So does it sound obvious? It does sound obvious, but many things in terms of research and psychology kind of sound obvious. But when we are in the busyness of every day, none more so than teachers, because, teachers walk into schools and they hit the ground running and they run all day, that sometimes we forget those very, very obvious and human responses to, like when somebody comes with a piece of good news, putting the phone down, moving away from the screen and saying, tell me more about that. That sounds amazing. That sounds brilliant. Or if we're really busy, being able to say to them, do you know what? I'd love to hear about this. I'm just about to go and teach a class. Look, I'm free at 4 o'clock. Come and tell me then, because I really want to hear that. So I think part and parcel of the challenges in that really busy school environment is remembering to stay human.
Yeah, That's so important, isn't it? We've on this podcast before now, we've had head teachers say, please can you remind staff that we are human? And we've had staff teachers say, please remind head teachers that we're human. And actually, we go through the day so fast, don't we? That is a fantastic reminder of just stopping to pause sometimes. And even I can't believe we don't. I will look at how I do this now, but do we stop to celebrate the good things with each other? Because obviously, if research has been done into this and it's not enough, we need to do that more. So I love that you've shared that with us. Helen, we probably need to come to a pause now, come to a stop. If people want to find out more about you and what you do, where do they find you?
Great question. So I have a website, www.positive-leaders.co.uk. I'm on LinkedIn. No idea what my link is there, but Helen Day, Positive Leaders. And I've also got a Facebook group for parents of neurodiverse girls called the Home of Hope. So you can find me there as well.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. So what we'll do is we'll put those links into the podcast blurb. So if people want to come and find you, they can. And certainly for the parents of those neurodiverse girls, I can see that, you have such a wonderful story and such a lot of expertise to share with them there. So thank you, Helen. Thank you for your time and sharing with us in such a vulnerable way.
Thank you. And just want to wish at the start of the year a very happy new year to all teachers and parents and students.
Thanks for listening. I hope you took something of value from today. If you want to connect, I'm at rowenahicks.com, or I have a Facebook group, which is Preventing Teacher Burnout. So I look forward to connecting to you at one of those.